Welcome back to Energy First with Sarah and Jen. My name is Jennifer McIntyre.
I'm Sarah Phillips.
And this is yet another episode of the podcast. We have a special guest with us today. First, as always, we do want to run through who our sponsors are. So we have Women's Energy Network, our huge sponsors, and Tiff is very involved with that organization as well. I'm sure we'll get into that. We also have Deep Well Services as sponsors, Mark and John Sabo. They're absolutely wonderful and super big supporters of the podcast. And then we have Makuso Services as well. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. We are always looking for sponsors, so anybody that's interested, please get in touch. Also, always looking for speakers. We are booking 2 or 3 months out, though, now with speakers, but definitely open to suggestions with that. So really looking forward to that. My belly is super full because we were at the KSW crawfish boil today, which was absolutely phenomenal. We will share the pictures of Sarah's face and her response to her first trying of crawfish. How was that for you, Sarah?
I didn't like it. No offense. Sorry. I wish I liked it because I feel rude, but I just think crawfish isn't my thing.
Yeah, but she's tried it. She did. Yeah. So at least you don't have to learn how to peel them now, since you'll never want to have them again.
Jen peeled it for me like I was her child.
I really love them. So the shrimp were good, though. You enjoyed the shrimp.
I love the shrimp.
Yeah.
They have like corn. Yeah.
Shrimp and corn and potatoes.
Yeah.
I don't eat any corn or potatoes because it takes up space from the crawfish in my stomach. So we do not like those extras. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Sarah, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, I love our guest this time. It's Tiff Kolp. So she's just a bad A person. She's just really humble and really loving, and her spirit just vibes everywhere. But like, as far as her credentials go, she's the president of Women's Energy Network. She's been in the industry. How many years have you been in the industry?
Oh, like 13.
13 years.
Yeah.
And now she's a lawyer, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about that. So, Tiff, tell us a little bit about your background.
So my name's Tiffanys Kolp. I got to meet you guys through many things, probably everything that we run into, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful to be here. I work for Three Rivers Royalty. We invest in oil and gas assets. That's a fancy way of saying we're mineral buyers. Like, we will buy your minerals if you're interested. And I manage a portfolio of assets. We're, I think, the largest landowner in Appalachia right now.
I did not realize that.
Me either.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so we're always looking, but I started in the industry. I graduated from law school in like 2008, and everyone was like losing their house, and I was like, what am I gonna do for work? And friends of mine were like, oh, oil and gas is like the only industry hiring, so come learn how to run title and do this. And I said, okay. So I started doing that, and I really enjoyed it.
What did you do legally prior to that?
So I clerked for a judge.
Okay.
And then I did some patent work for General Electric.
Okay.
Which is like weird.
It's just interesting. I just like hearing that kind of background and how people fall into the industry, right? Like, it's usually totally different.
I think I had no idea that like these jobs existed. Like, I'm from the Boston area, so in law school there was like an oil and gas section of our property book, and our property professor was like, just skip through that, you'll never use it. I was like, oh, I should probably go back and read that. Too late now, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So what year did you start that again? Oil and gas?
2009.
Okay.
2010.
Okay, and where did you start your career?
I was a contractor for Dudley Land Services.
Okay.
In like Scranton, Pennsylvania, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, I've heard of Dudley before. Yeah.
Steve Carr, you know a ton of people who probably do.
Jen knows a ton of people, just period.
Yeah.
But how'd you get your street credit?
So like part of running title or like abstracting is you have to go in the middle of nowhere to these courthouses, and sometimes there's not. You kind of have to do that for a little while, and then you don't have to do it after. You can kind of just like sit in an office. But there was one project that I was on that was in West Virginia, and you had to like sleep in your car in line up at like 4 a.m. or you could put something in line to save your spot.
Like a cone?
Like a cone, or someone used moonshine.
What?
Someone used moonshine once.
Nice.
I had like an umbrella, and someone like
Was
threw
the
my
moonshine
umbrella away.
still there the next day?
No, it was not. And
Of
that, I think,
course.
yeah. Someone just like drank it and took their spot.
Absolutely.
idea.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I would be tempted to do that if it was sitting there, you know? I mean, to be fair. That's kind of
Right?
like offering it up,
Yeah.
Mrs. West Virginia.
Yeah, that wasn't smart.
Is that like against the rules of like West Virginia moonshine, or can you do that?
Wasn't moonshine illegal for the longest time?
It is actually still illegal
Oh,
if,
yeah.
Oh,
if you're
right?
not.
It was in like a gallon like a milk car. So
Like
it
in
was
a milk
proper
carton?
moonshine.
Milk carton moonshine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Brand it.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So obviously, Tiff, you are super successful in your career, but we know you on a personal level, and you have a very rich family life as well. A beautiful son.
Thank you. Yes, I have a 4-year-old who only wears Spider-Man costumes. Like he won't wear anything else, even if it's like 85. But yes, I do. Obviously, being a mother is a joy, but I
Yeah.
also like to go to work and relax away from him sometimes. And then I have a husband who's very supportive of my career and pretty much everything that I do. He's there like with his foam finger, like ready to give me like a number one. So that's helpful.
And do you think it's that support work that makes you be able to balance the two?
Yeah, I think everyone's always thinking they could do a better job balancing.
Sure.
But yeah, I think my husband's really supportive, and that's super helpful for that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely hard. I mean, I was much more field oriented when Naili was younger, and like waking her up at 2:00 in the morning and shoving her in the back of a truck and putting like SpongeBob on the like DVD player back there and running out to pad because they needed something. And it just became second nature to her. And at the time, I remember it giving me such anxiety and thinking like, I'm a bad mom. Like, you know, how am I doing this to my kid? But if you talk to her now at 15, she'll be like, Mom, I remember doing that. And they're like rich experiences for her because she saw me truly working.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's definitely, I think, helped form her and her work ethic. But at the time when you're in it, it's really hard as a mom. Like you think you're doing something wrong. I don't know. It's definitely a difficult thing to kind of balance.
It's not traditional. And
Yeah.
I think like a lot of women's field work is not traditional, and you know, but it's great for your daughter to see that like she can do that too.
Yeah, I can remember one time we were decorating for her birthday. I think she was probably turning like 4 or 5, and we had pajamas on still. And a company man called me, and I had trucks that were like running past the lease road repeatedly. And no matter how many times I told the guy where he was going, he just could not find this road. And the company man's like, I need this stuff like literally now. Like you have to fix this. And Naili heard me on the phone, and she just shows up in the kitchen doorway with her boots in her hands and her
that's adorable.
her little nightgown on. And she's like, let's go, Mama. I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much. And so we got there. I almost cried. And then we got to the end of the lease road. I got the trucks up there. The company man's like, just come up and see me. I'm like, yeah, like we're in nightgowns, so we're definitely not coming up there. But it's definitely, it's interesting to kind of balance those two. Do you feel that it makes you a better mother? Like kind of having that work-life balance?
Yes, I absolutely do. I think it's given me like more patience, and also I enjoy going to work and I enjoy coming home. Like it's so different that the two are just like pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
But you know, some days are hard. Like it's not always great, as you guys know. But
Especially when they're little and they want you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on a little bit, can you tell us some of the best practices for women negotiating benefits, specifically with equity in a company? And how do you know if you're qualified to ask for that?
So, Sarah and I mentioned this the other day, but I think you never get it unless you ask, or unless you just like have someone looking out for you. But I think anytime you're in a position to do like a performance
And have you done this
review-
yourself?
Yes,
Okay.
I have. So, personally, I talked to like recruiters and HR professionals who dealt with my position level and kind of got what is market in that category. So like, what's the legal market in Pittsburgh for this role? Like in terms of salary, benefits, equity, like when would that be offered to me? What would I ask for sort of also how to monetize. If you're in like private equity or something, probably if you're asking for equity, it's going to have a zero value, but making sure you know kind of what they expect return wise when you're asking. So you're not asking for like, exact, you're not, is it the difference between $3,000 and $300,000?
Sure.
So I think just like educating yourself with that. And I think that, personally, I think that men talk about that a lot and
I was
women
going to ask,
don't.
do you think that there's kind of a difference there?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Like it was hard for
We
me.
went through that recently for yourself, right?
So also with sales, it's just so hard because there's like such a wide range of what people are paid. So it's hard to know your market value. And the only way we can know is to ask each other, and we have to trust each other because you know, we don't tell everybody. But so what you're saying is that you basically have to do your research to be able to justify your worth, and then also ask for what you're worth.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
And be ready to negotiate. Like be ready for them to counteroffer, and make sure that you think you're getting a fair offer.
Right.
And so one of the wonderful things that Women's Energy Network does is offer mentoring programs.
Yes.
And you're taking part of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tonight, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that program and your participation in it? Because I do think it's relatively unique, and I don't think that everybody knows in this industry that it is available to females. And it kind of feeds into one of the things that we were just discussing. This may be something that you would impart to somebody that you were mentoring.
Yes, absolutely. I think people hear like mentor program and they think either if you're going to be the mentor, then you're going to have someone like chase you around and ask you for a job and like that type of thing. And that's not what it is. And then they're also like, well, I'm not a mentor or I'm not a mentee. I'm not really sure what it is. But the Women's Energy Network mentoring group is an individualized program where you set a goal, and you should be, like I always say, in my life, I should be a mentor to someone and I should be a mentee of someone. So there's always going to be someone above me and someone below me at any point in my career. And so like if I was looking to like, make a big change into a different industry, I should have a mentor. And then just at my goal now, I should have a mentee. So you should always have someone that you're looking up to and someone that you're helping. And so this program lets you do that. And it also lets you work on your goals. We have group meetups where we have candid discussions about like negotiations, like performance reviews. I think even like last year, we even talked about like CapEx budgeting, which is like something that I think they didn't, like some of the women just hadn't had experience with. And so you kind of find someone who is a good fit for you and you continue the relationship. So you guys know like,
Bless you.
Sorry.
Bless you. So as in your career, have you had somebody that you would consider your top mentor that kind of helped form you?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of mentors. I think I have Natalie Jeffers from Berkshire Hathaway Oil and Gas, and also the West Virginia president. She really like pushed me to do a lot of things that were outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And she also told me that, so I was leaving land to go into like a attorney role where I had to take the bar exam. And I sort of felt like everyone was just waiting for me to fail because I was 27, I think. It was like later in my career. And so I was kind of just like waiting, and I was working while I was taking it.
So this is why they thought you were going to fail, because they thought that it was understandable if you did because you were so busy.
Right, because I was working full time and I was commuting downtown and I was finishing my MBA, and then I took the bar exam, which was like this awful test that no one should ever have to take. But she kind of like pulled me into her office and said like, you're getting this opportunity, like don't let anyone tell you that you're not going to do well. Like you deserve to be here just like everyone else, and like you'll do fine. And she didn't even like have a question about it. So then I felt like I couldn't either.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful and it's a lot. But it was, I think you sort of don't necessarily grow unless someone pushes you and also like believes in your success.
Yeah,
Aww,
I agree.
Yeah, so most of the time people talk about being uncomfortable. You can't grow unless you're uncomfortable.
You should have some discomfort.
Nobody talks about like having somebody who believes in you,
And having someone like you don't want to let down yourself, but also you don't want to let down like your mentor, the person who believes in you either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into, what are you doing now? What is your title specifically now? What is your specific role within your company? And what does your typical day kind of look like at Three Rivers?
So my title is VP of Land and Legal. So I do, Three Rivers has a parent company, San Jacinto Minerals, and we have assets in other basins, like the Delaware Basin, some in the Haynesville, some in the Permian. So I'm the VP of Legal for the parent company. So I look and manage.
So you manage the other basins as well then, kind of, or at least touch on them?
Yeah, I touch on the legal activities of the other basins. And then any kind of legal issues, litigation here in Appalachia, I handle. Sometimes with the help of like outside counsel, because that's helpful. And then we make sure we do all aspects of title, make sure that we're getting the correct like lease royalty, lease bonus, negotiate all of those. If there's any defects or things that we have to manage from like an acquisition perspective, then I usually respond to those, make sure that all of our assets are properly onboarded. I draft all the deeds, look over all the closing statements, sign all the leases.
Yeah, this is why she also acts in the same role for the Appalachian Pipeliners Association, which can be very painful with Tiffany, but we're very grateful to have her because she makes sure that everything is running exactly the way that it's supposed to.
I think that organization's it's such a good ROI. Like, everyone's chill, everyone does their own thing. Like, they ask me to help with the contracts, the waivers, the minutes. It's great. It's really a great group of people.
It's just so counterintuitive because I would have never known this about you because you're so bubbly and you seem like a type B and like having a very analytical role, you know, and like pushing paperwork. I would have never assumed.
I kind of like both sides. Like sometimes I like to just like close my door and do the...
I can see that. Yeah. And I think having the other side of you also kind of gives you a release from the mental. I can't imagine how much concentration and, you know what I mean, that it would take to carry out a role like that on a daily basis. Yeah.
But with that, you also still work with the landowners, right?
Yeah, so on larger transactions, then I'll step in, but we do have like buyers who manage probably like the day-to-day.
Well, you had an incident, right?
I think I've had a lot of incidents.
Yeah.
Tell us some of the good incidents.
So I was a germaphobe before I had a kid. Now I'm not, but this happened before.
You cannot be a germaphobe with a kid.
Yeah, you absolutely cannot be. So I brought like our admin in the field. It was her first day going in the field. And I was like, it's going to be great. We're going to go to this landowner's house. Like, you'll see that there's nothing to be afraid. She was female. It was like, you can come with me. Like, it'll be great. So we get lost. I have to go to the bathroom. I feel like a lot of women's field stories are bathroom involved.
They absolutely are. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so we're talking to the landowner. It always takes way long. You're like, we're going to get in, answer their questions. They already emailed me what they wanted to talk about. Like, it's never like that. Like, it's a 4-hour thing. You have to like eat their cooking, which is great a lot of times. Like, you know,
probably really bad sometimes.
Yeah, for the most part, it's enjoyable, but it always takes way longer than you think. So I'm there. I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. So I end up using the landowner's restroom, which I try not to do, just like as a courtesy. Well, so I went in, and it was the dirtiest restroom I've ever been in my life. Like, it makes like a gas station, like 7-Eleven bathroom look like very clean. So I was like, gross. And then I went to open the door when I was done, and the door locked, I guess I don't know, maybe from the outside, not from my side. And I was like wiggling the handle, and the handle fell off. So I was stuck in this bathroom.
Was there a window in there?
A little tiny like window above the toilet. So I'm trying to like climb through, and like my admin is after a while like wondering where I am. Like, am I okay? What's going on?
Thank gosh you had somebody with you.
I know. I'm like really thankful.
Yeah. You didn't have your phone?
No, I didn't have my phone.
You couldn't call anyone?
Couldn't call anyone. I had no service. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
There was no service there. It was in the middle of nowhere. So it was like, finally, like, she tried to help me. They had to get a crowbar and open the door because I couldn't fit through the window. Yeah, I couldn't fit through the window because it's tiny, and then the door was like broken. So it was an old door with like many layers of paint. So it must have just, I have no idea. So that was the last time I used the restroom in a landowner's house.
She held it after that.
Yes.
That's funny.
That's really funny. I think that you always ask me how I don't get embarrassed. And I think if you're in this industry long enough, you've gone through so many situations like that you're just like, there's really not a great deal left for me to be embarrassed about. Like, I honestly think
I still get embarrassed, and I've like been trapped in porta potties.
I think too, the recovery is key. Like, if you're able to recover, then people don't really remember like what you did that was embarrassing. They remember like, how did you handle it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can't run out of the porta-john like this?
You can't scream. Yeah.
Right? That doesn't work. That's not going to be in your best interest. They're going to remember that, Sarah.
You can, but I think no one else can.
So, one of your jobs is actually sourcing assets. How do you actually go about doing that? I mean, it's not like there's a newspaper that tells you this, or like, what do you do?
So there's a bunch of different ways that we do it, but a lot of times we get referrals from other landowners that we've purchased from, like their neighbor or something. Okay. Or we run like some preliminary title, or we'll get an attorney that I've dealt with like throughout my career will give me a call. And sometimes it's just as simple as being interested in an evaluation and seeing what the assets would be worth. And from there, we can start a conversation about whether a purchase is right for them or not.
And I truly don't know this, but do you build blocks of assets? So, for instance, if someone else has leased an asset between two of your assets, do you then approach that company directly to acquire that for some reason? Does that matter? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm thinking of it like on a right-of-way
like
access or controlling, like to get to somewhere. So how do you do that?
Not really. Probably the opposite. We try to like diversify in case a well doesn't end up moving forward or something happens, gets cut out of a unit or something like that.
Yeah, because I think that's a misconception of some landowners too, because they will ask me, who it is that's leasing stuff around them and can they approach that person? And I didn't know if that would be something that would be useful for them to do, or, you know what I mean, wouldn't be of interest to yourselves. I don't know. It's one of those sections of our industry that I know very little about. And it's so important because it's literally the first step before we can do absolutely any of the things that we do.
So what are some questions that, well, obviously we don't know much about it, but what do the landowners ask you? Like what best practices?
So they always, like anyone, they want to make sure they're getting like the best price for their acreage, and then whether a sale is right for them. And a lot of it just depends on what they're going to do with the proceeds. Their, tax advantages. There could be tax advantages to a sale versus a lease. There can be structured payments over time. But basically, they want to know how we came at the valuation and what they can do if they decide to not to sell, like what they can do to make sure that they get paid properly when the operator goes to drill.
Sure. And how do you, I know it's probably this huge set of criteria, but what are some of the criteria that go into the valuation that actually produces what these people are going to get paid?
So it's actually not as complicated as you would think. So we kind of look at it. Everyone has a different like proprietary model, but loosely based on like a present value calculation of what we think we would make an offer to a landowner of what we think they'll get in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So almost like if you win the lottery, you can take upfront payment or you can take like payment over time. And there are some factors that go into that in terms of like, how sure are we that this is going to be developed? Are there any curative issues? Is there any issue with possibly being cut out of a unit? Who's the operator? What are their practices? What's the if they've signed a lease, what's the royalty percentage? Because that's probably the highest one. We'd want to adjust our payment based on that.
There isn't like a set standard royalty amount?
So in Pennsylvania, it's going to be at least 12.5%, but then it depends on the market and like what the operator is doing in that area.
So that's a minimum. That's not a standard?
Mm-hmm, it's a minimum.
Oh, I thought it was like the standard.
No, usually you'll get like large landowners will get about 18%. That's usually like what our models are based off of.
Okay.
So
and how long is the average contract? 5 years. That's kind of standard?
Yeah. Yep, that's standard.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And is there usually an option to extend at the end of that?
Usually, yeah. And that's kind of a personal preference depending on what you got for your bonus, where the asset lies, whether it's going to be developed, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then I have had some people, I've read a few contracts, and they make very little sense to me because it's not my forte. But there seems to be kind of some built-in get-out clauses in there on occasion for both the operator and the landowner. What are those kind of circumstances?
So there's going to be like a trigger that holds a property by operations if they're doing all of this work and they built a pad and all that kind of stuff, then the lease can be held like in preparation for drilling. But there's a lot of circumstances where like, maybe they punched a couple top holes, but they haven't drilled any horizontals for 2 or 3 years. And those circumstances, you would want to look at your individual contract and see whether it would be terminated or not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
So do they ever have buyers or sellers remorse?
Yeah, I think we try not to have buyers, but I think some people do. And there's some assets that looked great when we purchased them, and they're not going to be drilled for one reason or another. Luckily, when you have a portfolio as compared to a regular landowner, then you don't have all your eggs in one basket. You can kind of spread that out. But we've purchased things that were like, oh, this is gonna start producing next month, and it's still not producing 3 years later. But that's Appalachia, baby. That's how it is. We're not in the Permian. You're not in Colorado. Like, there's not a lot of regulatory help for our industry.
Yeah. So the Permian is way more predictable.
Oh gosh.
Than
They all are.
That's
They're part
squares.
of the perpetuations. Yeah.
They're squares. They have like the Railroad Commission tells you where to drill, and that's where you are, and it's gonna go forward. Here we have airs, bats, all kinds of different things that can come up. I had
water sources. Just lots of things like that.
You guys probably even know more than me, but when I worked at another company, we had a pad that we were doing like a environmental survey on, and they found like arrowheads, like Native American arrowheads. And we had done all this work, and the landowner was like, yeah, I should have told you. They have like some kind of camp here once a year. You didn't know that? I was like, no, we didn't know that.
Now, can you get out of it when you discover something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope so. You can't do anything on those. They're protected. They should be. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, the pad location was moved to another site.
Okay.
Because you want to make sure that that's around for generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh no, I understand the reasoning behind it for sure. And you never know. Listen, there's been such a long history in this area. You never know what you're going to find. We were building a pad down in West Virginia and kept pouring dirt and stone down and could not get the compaction rates for this pad. Like, it just kept sinking. Could not figure out why. And I can't even remember what type of survey they ended up bringing in, but it turns out that the family that had lived on that property had physically hand mined coal for like 100 years and were selling it to like the town. So there were like all these tunnels under like where we were trying to, like, miles worth of tunnels from them hand mining. Again, it's West Virginia. I'm looking at you, Sarah.
Why?
But that was why we couldn't get the compaction rates. And they were like, oh, yeah, didn't we tell you when, you know what I mean?
Yes,
that we've been mining under that, hand mining under it for the last 100 years. We're like,
Makes me think of those like cartoons back in the day of people like little mouses with picks.
Correct, yeah.
Mice.
And they all take
Mouses.
and they all take a milk jug of moonshine when they're going down there to mine by hand.
To mark their spot.
So after you've negotiated that contract, the landowner is happy, you guys are happy. What do you do once you actually buy the land? Like, what happens? Is that it?
So we make sure it's leased and follow up with here there in Appalachia, there's a lot of payment discrepancies. You want to make sure that you're getting paid correctly from the operator. So that's like a calculation, and you would check all of your interest. If you're a smaller landowner, it's much less complicated. But for us, we have to look at stuff like many different assets in the same well, usually. So that takes sometimes going back and forth with the operator. Sometimes we'll have like arguments about what we think we should get paid, which royalty lease, like which lease controls based on the royalty rate, things like that.
Are there ever emotions involved with that?
They're not supposed to be.
So I think there probably are, especially for landowners. I think,
Oh, sure.
Have you experienced it?
Frustration is definitely sometimes an emotion, but I think, it's just part of drilling here is kind of having to go through and make sure everything looks okay.
Yeah, listen, there is nothing worse than a disgruntled landowner.
Yes,
I've been in some serious situations with disgruntled landowners. Yeah.
I think there's some landowners who, and I don't blame them, like retired and now their full-time job is like arguing over these royalty statements.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
what they do.
When I've thought of landowners in the past, I always think of like the hillbilly on the front porch with a shotgun, like, get off of my land. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
is
that's
that a thing?
Not really.
Because they're shooting after me 3 times now. 3
Oh my
times.
goodness.
3 times, 3 different locations.
I think like most of the that's nuts. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I've heard it, but I'm from West Virginia.
2 of them were in West Virginia. 1 was in Ohio.
So you're Pennsylvania free.
Pennsylvania I've not been shot at yet. Just Ohio and West Virginia. Yeah. So once you've leased that, who is the contact then for the landowner? Does it remain you guys?
Yeah, so we step in
not the
landowner's
operator.
shoes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's a question I've been asked too. Maybe somebody signed something 2 years ago and they now don't know who necessarily to get in touch with to talk about their paperwork or whatever. And they'll contact me and they'll be like, hey, do you know that lady on the board at Diversified? Can you ask her when they're going to, I'm like, yeah, no, we're not calling her.
I saw like some random guy ask you.
He wasn't, but it happens a lot. I'm like, yeah, they're not even going to know. I mean, that's the thing. The schedules change so frequently.
A lot. It's kind of like a joke that it's like a flip book of like wish list.
Yeah,
type
and
thing.
the last thing you want to do is promise somebody something and then it doesn't get followed through with, because that's going to make your job so much more difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they're disappointed.
I always say, can you give me like an idea, but I won't hold you to it because I know how much it changes.
Yeah.
But,
So do you have any other funny stories about working in the field with your landowners? Any other funny, strange situations?
I have like landowners now that I'm working with, and they are brothers. There's a couple brothers, and they were like all arguing, and now they started reporting each other to the IRS.
Nice.
Which is like a nice relationship to manage. Like,
yeah. And then there's you, like, I don't want to be involved with any of this.
Do you have to be involved with the IRS?
No. Thank God, no. But I try to like make sure that they can be productive instead of like hateful. So, that's just like one that I'm dealing with right now. We just had like an arbitration with a landowner who didn't read any of his paperwork. He just didn't. He just signed it. And then he was like, that's not what it says. I was like, oh God.
So do you recommend that landowners do get an attorney if it's a certain size of property?
I would say
of their own reputation or their own representation?
A lot of like the landowners that we deal with now are not the guy with the shotgun. Like they're sophisticated. They know when
we've
the
been
rates
around
are coming.
a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
Like as an industry.
Like they go to like industry events, or they have a friend who's kind of helped them, or or they go to Toby's town hall and they listen to like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're much more educated than I think like at the beginning. So some landowners do great by themselves, but if they have questions or think that they could be doing better, then absolutely I would recommend that they get a specific oil and gas attorney, not like family law or something.
Sure. Yeah. And if we flip it, do you have like a few really good questions that landowners could ask, or things that they really should be looking at in their contracts?
Yeah. So they should make sure that they have like a full copy of their oil and gas lease, not the memorandum. Memorandum is what the operator will put of record, and it won't have the confidential terms. So it won't have the royalty percentage. It won't have a lot of like,
what?
Yeah. 'Cause you're just putting it on notice. You don't you don't want to pay an attorney to negotiate all of these good terms for you, and then someone just puts it in the recorder's office for someone else to steal. So that's kind of the point. So you want to make sure I'm always surprised at how many landowners don't know what they negotiated, and they negotiated like, a lot. And it was a couple of years ago, and they were supposed to get a full copy, and they didn't. So usually you can ask the operators, like owner relations, for a full copy, and they'll mail you one or email it, and you'll know like what your terms are, and you'll have that like wherever you keep stuff.
Yeah, that's an absolutely very good tip for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you'll want to make sure if you're getting royalties or in preparation. So like I do it before, like when the rig's there, usually you'll get them like 3 months later. So I make sure that I have the calculations of what I expect to receive, and then also usually we use like the index price for natural gas in this basin, not the Henry Hub.
Yeah, okay.
So the Appalachian index price, make sure you know what that is. It's usually set like the beginning of the month, and it usually stays the same.
Mm-hmm. Those are all very good points. We get a lot of questions from this show, because they just assume
they know,
that we're going to be able to answer them.
How much is my property worth?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
it happens a lot.
Jen had somebody come up to her and was like, "Hey, I need to figure out, like, I'm having an issue with my well and my pad." And Jen's like, "I'll get on." I think you did. You followed up with it.
I do. Yeah.
It's crazy.
You probably know the people who can look at it.
Yeah, or like I can track down the well tender that's dealing with that property, or you know what I mean, whatever. We can usually figure it out. But if I did do it for every single individual that had a question, that would be my full-time job.
If you want to know how much your property is worth, call Jen.
Absolutely.
Phone number's public.
That's going to start being like a real estate agent.
Not do that.
Yeah, you're good. That'll be a good business.
Definitely not. No.
So, do you ever have landowners that are opposers of our industry?
Yes, actually, kind of a lot of them. There will be environmentalists, a lot of people who like acquired things through their family but live in like the Northeast or like those
Boston,
areas.
Where you're from?
Yep. Me and Toby.
And Toby's mom? Yeah. Is that how you got your job at EQT?
No.
Toby's mom called Toby and was like, "Hey, you need to give this girl a job." We can ask Toby if she can use that story, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have led with that on this podcast.
That is. How did you get in this industry? Well, Toby's mom called me up and she was like, "I think you should."
So how do you kind of contend with that? I mean, it's definitely something that we have tried to model this podcast on, is being much more middle of the line, because I truly think that as an industry we are, and a lot of people don't really realize that about us, that we are environmentalists at heart, that we do want what's best for I mean, let's face it, 89% of our people that are employed in this industry are actually local now. It's not loads of people from other places, or it's transplants. They did come from Louisiana or Texas, but they're physically living here now, right? So this is their home. We do want to keep this safe and sound. How do you kind of change your mindset in negotiation when you're dealing with individuals that have issue with our industry? I mean, that must be difficult.
And it's really hard to change their mind. But I think just like educating them is sort of more my short-term goal, and making sure that they have access to like the latest data about, how safe it can be and how most companies are developing responsibly, and they're, going above and beyond the regulatory standards to kind of create their own business risk of where they want to be. Like a lot of operators will actually push for higher like air quality standards, things like that, because they believe it should be, and they also are already hitting those. So I think a lot of they're doing their best to become qualified through Project Canary, or you know what I mean? They're doing these things that aren't even mandated right now, but they're choosing to do them because they want to do the right thing. Right. And they live here too. So I think
we all live here.
Right.
Yeah. So
didn't you say that those landowners typically sell?
Yeah. So they actually, it's kind of counterintuitive to my thought process, but a lot of people who are opposed to the industry would rather sell than lease, because they don't want to benefit directly from like fracking operations.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised, but it's come up like,
aren't they still?
Well, they're benefiting from a sale, so in their minds, I guess
But it's like not long term or something. So they're okay to take it for one payment, but not long term. That's strange.
Yeah.
I think they kind of just want to wash their hands of it. Like they're like, I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It is kind of strange.
Yeah.
I don't talk them out of it. It's not part of it. I try not to.
So obviously, I mean, I am all about integrity and honesty and all of that kind of stuff. And I think as an industry, generally speaking, we are. How do you ensure, and I'm sure you guys have the same mindset, that you want it to be fair for the operator, fair for yourselves, fair for the landowner. How do you really make sure that that's what's happening?
Yeah. So I try to make sure that everyone feels like they walked away with a good deal, or like a deal that they can live with. And sometimes you can ask the landowner like what their concerns are. And, maybe sometimes it's not about price. Maybe it's about like sending their kid to college, or, getting funds together for something, or maybe they want us to like make a donation to their charity.
Yeah.
So some of those like non-zero sum negotiation tactics that we can kind of incorporate to make them feel better, and also like make sure that they feel like they have a good deal just like we do.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely worth mentioning that this whole process, I mean, has literally flooded this area with funding for individuals that would not have had it otherwise. People with agricultural backgrounds, people with economic backgrounds that would not have what they have today if we weren't negotiating these leases and having this activity here in the tri-state area.
Yeah, and I think support for the community too. Like a lot of like we sponsor things all the time, and I know like
you guys
all the
sponsor
other
a lot of things.
Yeah, to make sure whatever's important to like our landowners is important to us. So we had a landowner whose kids were showing like goats at the Junior Washington Agricultural Fair, so I got to go to that. I brought my son. He like ran behind the pen. Like,
guys, Tiffany's son is the cutest little boy ever.
Seriously,
he's a hellion though. But yeah,
he should be a model, a little child
He's
model.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. And you guys do definitely give back. I mean, as an industry, I think as a whole, we definitely give back a lot.
I always wish that somehow my family had land that they had no idea how much value. You know what I'm saying? I always imagine, like when I was in North Dakota.
You fantasize about having like oil and gas that Tiff calls you one day and she's like, hey, I'm going to give you millions of dollars for that.
Yeah, like 20 years ago. Like I used to work in North Dakota, and I met this friend through church, like this older man, and I called him the king of North Dakota because he like lived on this huge mansion and this huge property, and I was like, gosh, he's so lucky. That he just stumbled across this, that it was in his family. Yeah, like he was an advisor to Trump. Like he's in the Illuminati, pretty sure. I can't remember his name, but he was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see the change. I think that these negotiations have initiated and instigated here in this area, just with coal and steel kind of dying out, and not just the jobs that it's created, but these lease opportunities have breathed new life into a lot of communities, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And allowed people to keep their properties and keep their farms and all of that kind of stuff here.
And got a job for Tiffany at a downturn market.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't have had a job.
And every law school grad in 2008, a lot of them ended up in oil and gas, which was surprising. But
yeah. Are there any of them that you graduated with that did go into it that you were like, wow, I can't believe that they chose to have this as their industry? Do you know what I mean? That were like super dead set against.
No, I don't think so. I think people were kind of open at that point, but I think like I thought I would work in finance, and like that wasn't happening then. But
well, you're not allowed now because we're not letting you go. You're not allowed to go anywhere.
I love the people too. I think like even my friends who have left the industry, like at one point or another for like a better opportunity or something, they all say like the same thing. They're like, I miss the people. Like the energy industry people are just,
it's addictive.
Yeah,
like it literally
really
is. Yeah. I mean, even today at the crawfish boil. It's like being with your family. I mean, it's literally like Christmas Day, right? That's what it feels like to me when you go to something like that. It's the same kind of adrenaline feeling. It's the same feeling that I get when I go out on location. Like as soon as I'm driving up that leash road and I know who it is that I'm going to go and see, it's like visiting family.
Yeah, it's just everyone teases you. No one puts up with BS. Like it's a very different culture.
And I think they all know,
especially
like,
right now.
We've all been in it a while too, so they know like what you're up to and like, you know, what you're interested in. They talk to you about that. Like it's just, and it's fun to go to like industry events. And I mean, I would have never picked up, like, I would never gone clay shooting if I wasn't in energy.
Oh, me either. She took me clay shooting
for the first time. I've taken Sarah for a lot of her first things happening.
Yeah,
so
you have.
First clays, first pheasant hunt, first crawfish, which she really hated.
Oh, yeah. We had another first.
We did. Yeah, you didn't like this one. You
so
liked the other
gentleman.
two.
Kinda. I didn't like murdering the bird.
Oh, my dear goodness. It's okay if you eat it. It's okay if you eat it. She was driving there and she calls me and she's like, I just keep thinking in my head, if I kill the bird, am I still going to go to heaven?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, girl.
Yeah, I prayed for
That's
that
adorable.
bird whenever it was dying and watched it take its last breath. And I was like, please, like, find peace.
It's either for you or it's
like
not.
crying
Kind of like our industry, right? It's either for you or it's not. You either survive.
Yeah.
It definitely weeds out the people that are not capable of kind of coping with it, you know, for sure. So I should have asked you this prior to you coming, but are there any websites or organizations that you are aware of that a landowner could go to that have like answers to common questions or something like that? And if you don't know that, would you mind finding any that are available to us and we can kind of put them up here? Is there any?
Yeah,
anything?
definitely. There's like, there's Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowners Association, which is pretty helpful. So they monitor like legislation. They lobby for like helpful landowner, things that they could pass. They'll also give you some like advice, and they'll, everything in Pennsylvania is kind of spread out. There's not one spot like in the DEP that you could find everything as a landowner. So they kind of put that together for you.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And they also answer questions about like lease royalty, language, blah, blah, things like that.
Good to
that's
know.
a really good group, I think. And they also helped with passing. We just got in March, like the Pennsylvania Fair Pay Landowner Statute, which is basically allowing, like, if you don't get paid for a long time, the landowner can get interest, which is similar to like what they have in Colorado and they have in Texas. So that's helpful too. So like, they help.
And do they have to apply for getting that interest? Do you know what I mean? Or is it something that happens automatically?
So there's like a trigger that they have to make sure they contact and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's nice that we have it now because every other basin had it for so long.
That's surprising that we haven't had it, you know? Especially with all the...
I'm glad to hear that we do.
I think like we're getting more landowner friendly in this basin. Like first we just wanted development. And it was kind of like everyone for themselves. And now it's more of like, let's work together and make sure that we have like... Which
is the partnerships that we really want to create for long term, because we're going to be here for a long time. So we need to build those relationships and have them last for sure. Well, no, that's super helpful. I think we will definitely get a link to that and put that up here for everybody too. We're not going to inundate Tiff with messages, so we're not going to put her personal stuff up there, you know. But she is on call.
I think I'm easy to find.
Yeah, I think we all
if you
are.
want to find me.
But do you have any last thoughts, Tiff, before we kind of finish up? I'm so glad you've come on, because I can't stress to you how important this episode has been and how many times we've been asked for just some general information about what you do, both from our perspective, because I had no clue, and then from the landowner's perspective, because they don't even know where to start or kind of things to ask. So we've really been looking forward to this episode for sure.
Yeah, same here. And just thank you guys for having me on. And I, really respect both of you and love you so much.
That goes both ways.
Oh, absolutely. You're such a beautiful human being.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Tiff Culp for coming on. And this has been another episode of Energy First with Sarah and Jen.